I'll just tell you the story real quick. My neighbor, Nakul Thomas, who is an Oxford EMBA, brilliant guy in business, and he came over and we were kind of talking about the tariffs and everything. And he, I thought, very, very wisely said that, focusing on resilience and hope is more important than focusing on the tariffs. And so that's what we talked about. And uh, actually, he gave me a really cool overview about his take on me, my background, and that it had all been really based on resilience and hope and overcoming many, many, many struggles and failures and setbacks. And he really thought that was the most important part of my story was the failures and the struggles that I've had, more than the triumphs, because being a publicist, I always want to focus on the positive and that kind of thing. But the truth of the matter is, I have had many triumphs because I've had so many failures and setbacks and struggles. And he said he really thought that was the most important part of the story. And the more I thought about it, the more I fully had to agree with him. And I was very grateful. He's a brilliant guy. Very grateful for his summary of the things that he knows about me and the things that have happened in my life. And I'm really so grateful for getting a little help from my friends like you, and him. And I look at how many times I've been helped by my friends and uh, the long-term relationships that I've had, like with you, you know. So, folks, if I'm going to start recording, or I'm going to record all of this, maybe. So I want to introduce my friend Ron Horry of FinFit Life, which has a company that has love infused into it. So, what I'd like to talk today, Ron, did you get a chance to review the overview that I sent you?
I did. I took a quick look at it.
Okay. So overview though, you felt like that was good.
I think absolutely, the resilience part and what Nakul said about overcoming challenges. I think that's definitely a key element.
Yeah. And sticking with it, and one of my mantras has been why rush to failure when you can take your time to success? That it's easy to go wrong fast, you know what I mean? But it's about correcting and it's about sticking with it and having hope in this challenging time. There's lots of struggles today from the tariffs, but also from the boon of AI. But that's also a disruptor. So I thought that's what we kind of talk about today. And what I'd like to do is I'm going to start to use the Great Discovery as a almost like a radio network, because it's a really great place to upload videos to for podcast listening on the go, which I'm a big fan of. And so I've learned, the more I think about it, the more I think I want to talk about learning to love the Great Discovery platform, because I can post my free courses there about the Great Discovery. There's so many great people there. They do so many wonderful things. We had a global business network event yesterday. So, what I'm going to do is I'm going to start to create courses with you, Ron, as my co-host, from our Friday morning meetings, and we'll talk about things that are happening that we see in our lives, in our businesses, and how we can help people learn about resilience and about hope and about love and infusing that. and like you saw me at the Roomy Awards, so why don't we start there? And because that was really fun, that was really exciting, and I had a great time. They were so kind, and again, it's all about friends, it's about friendship, and I've been helped so many times so deeply by friends, and I think my mantra needs to be I get by with a little love for my friends. So Ron, let's talk a little bit about you and business networking in FinFit life.
Sure. How would you like to start?
Well, let's just talk about your life, and we're all in this boat together of this new economy and the AI revolution, the tariffs, and and it's all about resilience and staying positive. So we don't have to talk about the tariffs because we don't control them, but we control our own lives, and I think networking is very, very, very important, especially, that with ChatGPT and all of the offspring of ChatGPT and what can be done with that. So let's talk a little bit about, everything that you're experiencing in your own life and, what you want to talk about.
Well, there's a lot I could talk about, especially about resilience, but I'll keep it short. Because when I was a young kid, I had two younger brothers. But as I was thinking, actually, I was thinking the other day, I don't really remember playing with my brothers. And I was really solitary, very introverted, very shy, didn't have many friends, maybe two or three friends as I was growing up. And when I was in grammar school, I was advanced half a year twice. So I was a year younger than everybody else in my class. So I didn't really think anything about it, but again, I was very solitary and had really difficult time making friends. And it really, it didn't really bother me until, let's say, I was in high school, where you're socializing, you're talking, well, you're wanting to be girls and so on. And this one time I got this huge rejection. I can remember like it was yesterday. So there was this one girl that I had infatuation with, right? I can still remember her name was Karen. She had this really cute ponytail, and she had a really good friend named Roseanne. And so I was really shy. I couldn't talk to her. Even well, I had some guy buddies, but they had this picture day where the photographer would come in, they take pictures, and then you would exchange pictures, photos, actually photos with other people. And so I wrote a note. I said, "Hey Karen, I'd like to exchange photos, and can I have your phone number?" And I was too shy to talk to her or even give it to her. So I put the note and I gave it to Roseanne. I said, "Hey Roseanne, would you give this to Karen?" So she did. And we were coming out of this class, and I can still remember it like yesterday. She said, "Karen saw your note, and she said it gives her the creeps." And I said, "Oh," I felt like I was stabbed in the heart with a
Oh,
pitchfork.
yeah.
And I said, "Oh my God." And so, but gradually, I overcame that, even though I still remember it. So, I would force myself to talk to girls, say, "Hey, hi, how you doing?" And gradually broke out of my shell, you might say. And then fast forward, I was in community college and I was walking across the campus with another friend of mine who was in high school. Her name was Ruth. So I was talking with Ruth and we're just chatting. And then Karen happens to be there. And so the three of us were walking. And, and we were just all chatting and so on. So later on, Ruth says to me, Karen said, "Wow, Ron sure has changed." And I said, "Yes," like revenge.
Yeah, yeah. Good for you.
But
Good for
after
you.
that, it launched me on, just, putting myself out there. And then I was in high tech for a number of years as a technical IT guy, but then got into sales. So learned how to talk to people, deal with no's, how to handle rejection, keep moving forward. And like you said, you don't deny the sufferings or the pain or the agony or the ups and downs. But in fact, there's one saying I still remember said, "What doesn't kill me makes me stronger." I think it's a song. And so, things like that and learning about personal development really set me on a course that has really been a foundation for taking chances, looking at opportunities. Um, what's the downside of not doing something? So that's the short story of my life. And as somebody said, that's my story, and I'm sticking to it.
This is funny, I think, because I did the exact same thing. This is, I don't know, whatever it is. I gave Robin Starwas a note to give to Sharon Hubler. And the, the reaction was, well, he's a nice kid, but who likes kids? So that was my arrow in the heart. It's kind of funny, but now I have to tell you, one thing that is really important to me in my adult life, and that is the understanding of loneliness. Every time I hear about loneliness, it really is painful to me, and I'll tell you why. When I was 22 years old, fresh out of college, I had a lot of friends in college and everything in Michigan, but then I went to New York by myself, and I was 22 years old. I was working as an NBC page and living in Hell's Kitchen, 45th Street and 8th Avenue. I had bars on the window, and like I said to this this lady I was speaking to yesterday, just telling her the truth, I would go to sleep with the sound of hookers arguing with their johns and winos breaking wine bottles. That was my life in New York by myself. And I was just lonely to the bone. I mean, it just was so painful. I was just so alone and alone in New York. I didn't have any money. I didn't even have enough warm clothes for New York winters. I mean, it was really, really painful. And so I think it's important to share those things. That it's even if you know, success is, and I've interviewed so many people. I've learned from virtually all of them. Success is up and down and up and down. And even multimillionaires that I've interviewed said how many times they went that close to just going BK, losing everything, but then they were able to recover or be resilient and come back. So that's what I want to start doing more is about sharing my stories of resilience, so people can relate that, success comes to guys like you and guys like me, but it's a not, what do they call it? Oh, it's a roller coaster ride. That's what I was trying to think of.
Right.
Roller coastering. It's not all just like hopping on a rocket ship and going to a road of fame and fortune, right?
Exactly. Exactly. And I think you're right. It shows when people share, their stories, it creates a common, like you said, it was kind of interesting that we had both had a common experience with, these young
Yeah.
girls. But we see where people are today with their fame and fortune or whatever, but we don't hear about the struggles so much. And also, too, even if we see on the surface somebody's a multi-billionaire, they have their private yacht and private plane and so on, that's just on the surface. We don't know, okay, what are their relationships right? Maybe they've sacrificed. business for their family or their kids. And, they, anyway, so
Or their health,
health, especially. Oh, absolutely.
that because that is a big part of it, that you got to keep your health too. So you have to find that right balance.
I think, when it comes to the love perspective, it's being willing to share your whole being, the good, the bad, and the ugly, the ups and downs, to people that and I think it's part of that relation. It's definitely part of that relationship building. It's not just shaking hands and meeting people at networking events, but it's, like meeting somebody. That's just the beginning of what could be a friendship that could evolve into a relationship. And it takes time, and it can,
Perfect. Oh, well, go ahead. But this is a perfect transition. But go ahead.
well, it takes time to develop that know you, like you, trust you, love you, but it can also be broken in an instant, if people reveal who they really are. But go ahead.
Okay. Well, let's talk about networking because that's something we both know and enjoy. Um, you're right about that. That uh, people do reveal themselves. And I recently had a conversation with somebody that I was very impressed with. He really had been through the ringer, and he came out very wise and knowledgeable and strong. And he was very blunt right up front in networking. I appreciated that. And he said, Mike, for me, there are two kinds of people. There are givers and there are takers. And I stay as far away and separate myself as fast as I can, he said, from the takers. Okay. And there's plenty of takers at networking events. Okay, maybe it's an innocent mistake that they come thinking, well, I'm just going to network. They some of them are just freeloaders, to tell you the truth, because I put on big networking events, and some of them, that's all they want to do is take, take, take. So, and others are givers. And he was, he said you have to give first and give, and then you have an ask after you've given, you've gotten to know each other. And I think that was really true, and I respect that. And I think giving is, and you talk about giver's gain, you mentioned that frequently, which is absolutely right. So that's what I want to talk about is networking events. And I want to talk a little bit about the power of reaching out, touching base, and checking in and following up, I should say, to put it correctly, is the key to really, I think, almost everything in life. It's almost like you checking in with that girl first. You were checking in because you wanted to find out. So it's like because you were interested in her, you cared about wanting to know her, you were infatuated and had an affinity for her. Um, that's really what networking is about. That's what so many people don't do. I literally, in my experience, 1 in 100 actually ever check in and follow up after networking events. So the math is simple. If you want to stand out at a networking event, you don't do it at the networking event. You do it after the networking event. You can be 1 in 100 just by checking in and following up after the event. So that to me is the essence of it. And we're organizing a networking event series here in Lafayette, which I'm really excited about, especially with the people that I'm organizing it with. So that's one of the things we're going to be sharing a lot is about using AI for checking in and following up.
That's great. Be sure to let me know about the networking events because I know a few people near Lafayette and Moraga.
Yeah. We're doing it's going to be fun, and this is part of the introduction for it. So I'm going to be sharing this as a course. Um, what I really want to do is teach the power of business networking AI for checking in and following up. Number one, it's really important to network when something is new is happening, like AI revolution and the tariffs. So it's important to be touching base with people you respect and like to get their take on things. So it is important to do networking, but then to really use the fact that we are coming together around this to stay resilient and have hope in your business and stay current is to check in and follow up as well. And that's how you can learn AI and check in and follow up at the same time with AI podcast listening education on the go. And I'm going to be inviting people to learn more about AI and the great discovery because there's a lot of things that I can bring to the great discovery that will, I kind of think for me personally, really kind of perfect it and improve it. There's things about it I absolutely love, and the people in it I absolutely love. Do I think it's perfect yet? I don't. But I think it's really great, and I think it can be uh, incredible with the things that I'm contributing and the things that more people can contribute, especially the fact that they've got strong audio capabilities online for reaching people up here with podcast listening education on the go. And I know that's something that you respect because
Yes.
of FinFit Life and your thoughts on health and wealth. And why don't you talk a little bit about that, if you would?
I'm sorry, say that again.
Talk a little bit about podcast listening, education on the go, and FinFit Life, how those really come together.
Oh, sure. I'm always happy to talk about that. But, just to back up for a moment, you talk about checking in and following up. So, our business team, we had a training and they said, okay, and it was all about reconnecting with people. And before the pandemic, I would go to networking events pretty regularly, maybe even once a week or more. And like you say, getting, shaking hands, getting people to introduce myself. But I had lost touch with them, during the pandemic and even recently. So I have this, list of people that I know. I know them. They know me. Some, we've had coffee meetings. It would just be more than just a one-time introduction. And so the theme of this exercise, it was a group exercise. They said, okay, go through your phone, and you have 5 minutes, and send this simple message, this text to people. Let's say it was you, and hadn't talked to you in 3 years. And I'd say, hey, Mike, this is Ron. I haven't been in touch for a while. Let's have coffee this week. And that's it. And so, they had a timer. They said, okay, you have 5 minutes, send out as many messages as you can. So I did. I sent out about 5 messages. And then this one woman, she was just, very rapid on her texting, and she sent out 52 texts in 5 minutes. And they're very personalized. But anyway, back to my story. So I had hesitated before this exercise. I had hesitated about reaching out. I said, "Oh, it's been so long. What am I going to say? What am I going? How am I going to reconnect?" But just that simple message, "Hey, Mike, it's been a while since." And then also, the in-person coffee meetings. I'm thinking, oh my God, it takes an hour to talk, and then a half hour to get there, half hour to get home. That's 2 hours. I was thinking about the time it takes. But I thought, okay, I'll do this exercise. So I got back 3 people that said, yeah, let's get together. It's been a while. I'm going to be traveling, but let's touch base. And even recently, so I realized, okay, what I was lacking is working on that human touch. Let's have coffee. In fact, one gentleman, I've known him for years, So he said, "Yeah, let's have coffee. Let's meet for coffee." So we sat down and actually talked for about an hour, not really talking anything about business. But my intent was, okay, renew the relationship. How can I help them? How can we work together? So that's the secondary part of the following up. Like the checking in, having coffee, and not necessarily talking about business or referrals. And then so we just caught up, and he said, "Hey, this was great. Let's do it again." And I had a great time learning more about him also. But but the checking in, the follow up part is especially in person when possible, because I used to focus on Zoom meetings. Hey, Mike, it's been a while. Let's have a Zoom meeting. But there's a total different connection in person. So
Well, you brought up a couple of points, Ron, if I may jump in
sure.
here for a second. You used the word reconnecting. And, think about that for a minute. You can't make new old friends. So it's powerful to touch base and reconnect with people. That's really powerful. And then adding the human touch. Now, one of the things that Not Cool and I talked about yesterday was at the end of the day, when AI has come in and affected all parts of our lives and work, what remains? That's the big question. And that is human beings remain. And they're still human and they still need love. And they still need friendship and affection and care and the humanity. So that's what we need to focus on is, being ready to embrace people about AI and the future of work. So if we are reaching out and preparing them about the future of work, what's it going to be like? And by touching base and preparing them, it's also talking about us in business. Now, let's talk about FinFit Life as part of the future of work, okay? Because if you are in AI and you're still, human, and maybe AI has taken your job or altered it so you don't like it much anymore. Well, you're going to need love, but you're also, one thing you're going to need is insurance, And so when you talk about the future of work, getting into the insurance industry and the future of work and what you are doing with your passion and love for FinFit Life, that's part of the future of work. I think that's one area that's going to sustain in the era of AI and the AI revolution.
Oh, I think you're absolutely right.
So
So I
talk
think,
about your decision to go and make your work working with FinFit Life, if you would.
okay, well, I'll kind of give you the backstory. So I had a high tech career in Silicon Valley here doing technical work because I'm an analytical at heart. So, it was over 10 years with that company. But they're offering an opportunity for people to leave with a good package. So I had a side business, home business, and I said, "Oh, I'll be my own boss." So I took the package. It was very generous, unlike today, and started on my journey of entrepreneurship. And I was, I'll admit I was terrible at it. So I was going through my savings, but I was determined not to have to go back to a corporate job. And so, I love to learn. So I was, learning about communication, marketing, sales, and so on in a genuine way. And I never looked back. So there were those ups and downs, like you mentioned. But I think what really attracted me to, let's say, the financial area is, and so basically, um, we combine health and wealth. So what does that mean? We reward people for being healthy. Could be as simple as walking activities. and they give rewards and discounts. And there's a way they can actually get enough rewards and discounts to actually get a life insurance policy for free. But so I was when I was in doing sales training, I had a coffee meeting with this one woman I had met at a networking event, and she said, "Hey, Ron, I'd like to talk to you. Let's have coffee." So I said, "Sure." And so she was a life insurance agent, and she was having trouble finding leads. So she said, "Ron, do you have life insurance?" And I said, "Yes, I do." "And have you ever heard of this concept called living benefits?" I said, "What is that?" And this was a few years ago, and they were a pioneer in this living benefits area, which is very common now. So I said, "Yeah, I have life insurance." And the only thing I knew was when I died, my brother and with sons would get the money, right? It's
Right.
all about death. Most people don't like to talk about death. But she said, "Well, living benefits is it's life insurance, but you don't have to die to use it. You can take money out if you get sick or can't work and pay for your medical bills or your expenses." I said, "Are you kidding?" And one thing she touched on was long term care because my mother passed away after 5 years of dementia, and my brother was taking care of her 24/7. And if she had had this type of protection, my brother could have hired somebody to come in the evenings, and he could sleep for more than 3 hours. And so I said, I need to find out more about this because it really hit me on a personal level. So that led one thing to another. And then I realized, okay, there is such a big need for people to understand or learn what they don't know about this type of a protection product. And so we call it a movement at FinFit Life. And we're the only company that combines health and wealth together. So um, that created a real passion in me to let people know, especially if people are in their 50s, they're concerned about two things: running out of money in retirement, and what happens if I get sick? Who's going to take care of me? So we have an answer that most people have never heard of. So I have a passion for spreading the message, and you say. Whenever you're following up with somebody, maybe only 1 in 100 follows up. So understanding, okay, I'm in sales, but we have to understand not everybody's going to say, "Oh, wow, I never heard about that. How can I get started?" um, in fact, a quick story, we joke about it, about the image of a life insurance agent. We say, if you're on an airplane and you don't want to talk to the person next to you, tell them you sell life insurance. And all of a sudden, they're too busy to talk, which doesn't bother me because, having gone through that horrible experience when I was a kid being rejected by this girl, I feel like I'm bulletproof. But hey, it's like, anyway. So we definitely, have a movement where we want to affect people's lives on a very personal level. In fact, one of our top leaders, his philosophy is not only do I want to get to know my clients, I want to get to know their kids, get to know their family. So it's more than a transaction, it's definitely a
Yeah.
relationship foundation. It's kind of a
Well,
long answer to your story,
yeah,
your
it
question.
will continue. Let me do this at this point. Let me jump in here and talk about the marriage of what we're doing right now and the great discovery. Because you talked about telling the story, and that's what we're here to do. I want to help tell the story of Ron Horry and FinFit Life. Let me tell you about my love of the great discovery platform. Now, I am known as the super course creator of the Great Discovery.
Yes, you are.
because I have produced, I think the last time I looked, three times as many courses as anybody else in the Great Discovery because I have 50 years of experience and, the courses and all the interviews I've done and all the experiences I've done. What I really want to share with people is my new passion for posting courses as story sharing and storytelling courses on the Great Discovery in particular, because one of its many, many strengths, the number one strength is the people inside of it. The two co-CEOs are Dr. Sandra Harry, who is the widow of Dr. Michael Harry, who is the creator of Six Sigma. And Great Discovery is the fourth generation of Six Sigma used by Navy SEALs and, top corporations. And it's an amazing platform. And then Tim Taylor is the other co-CEO. The platform is multimedia and it's spectacular in terms of everything from having AI built into it for sharing courses and storytelling and they use multimedia in a way that is amazing because they have everything from free courses to paid courses to affiliate courses where you can monetize your courses. And one of the things I want to do in the Great Discovery is to create courses that, help promote my friends in commerce like Ron Horry. And because I've had so much help from my friends and really so much love from my friends so often. Just yesterday, conversation with Nicole Thomas. It was an amazing time for both of us. We had a great conversation. So what I want to do is I'm going to create a course on the Great Discovery about Ron Horry and me and our conversation and networking and checking in and following up after networking events because I really want to help grow the Great Discovery. It's really my favorite place to post my courses. I also have them on Instagram and I put them on YouTube, but I have 60,000 followers on Instagram about ChatGPT networking, but it's a lot harder to get traction on YouTube. But then I also have over 500 AM FM radio stations to promote stories on. And my friends at Sports Byline USA Radio really love helping people to promote their podcasts. So that's really powerful. And that's one of the things that I'll be sharing and creating courses on. So I'm going to be creating more paid courses because I want to show people how they can create free courses and paid courses on the Great Discovery. So they can get paid by sharing their wisdom and sharing their knowledge. So that's one of the new things I'm going to be doing. And my focus, I can tell you right now, is going to be creating a book about checking in and following up with business networking AI because to me, that is the most sure-footed, guaranteed traction approach that is out there. You can throw darts and you can just scatter things to the wind. But if you really want to take a targeted approach, that's what I'm going to be teaching with checking in and following up after business networking events with AI. So you can learn AI on the go with podcast listening. I think this will make a great podcast to listen to FinFit Life, the future of work, the benefits, and doing it while you've got your earphones in and you're out for a great walk in the country, taking in the trees and the world really. Like remember the recent time you were out for a walk and suddenly you just pulled out your phone and just did a post right there.
Yes, yes. I think
Talk
the
a little,
spontaneity really comes through also.
what does?
The spontaneity instead of
Oh
doing
yeah, yeah, yeah,
anything.
yeah. That's so true. The power and the spontaneity of it. One of the things that I've learned, in fact, I did it this morning, is I can do interviews right on my phone. So I was talking to a fellow who's got an amazing program for email marketing, and I asked him, I said, "Do you mind if I record this call, for note-taking purposes?" And he goes, "No, not at all." So I hit record, and I'm recording the call. And it was so great that I told him, look, this is much more than just note taking. This is a course. This is an amazing story and I have it. I've captured it. So I'm going to be sharing that as a course in the Great Discovery. So sometimes things don't have to be where you're just driving yourself crazy, coming up with the outline of the course and all this other stuff. Sometimes they can be totally spontaneous, and those are sometimes the most important thing, because really what you're doing is simple. You're tapping somebody on the shoulder and saying, "Hey, excuse me, do you know about this?" That's really all you're doing. You're just saying, "Do you know about this?" And if they do, fine. But if they don't, you're educating them. So, yeah, that's exciting stuff. That's what I really want to be concentrating on, to help people to learn how to share their stories. And if they can't share their own stories, I want to interview them and share their story for them on the Great Discovery.
I think, Mike, your generosity, is based on the love philosophy, right, of sharing. So you have a lot of wisdom, you've gone through a lot of experiences, but just, your willingness to create and share for free and also educate people. Hey, if you have knowledge of a certain specialty, here's a platform, the Great Discovery, where you can create free courses like you're doing, and if it's a specialized area, people can create a course, a paid course that people would be willing to invest in. So it could be another income stream or another income opportunity or business opportunity, depending on how much effort people want to invest. So I think, it shows, your generosity and your perspective in what you're doing. So,
I appreciate that,
hats
Ron.
off to you. No, definitely, because you're very, you might call it people, you're very people centered, other centered, whereas a lot of people are self centered. How can I get ahead? Who's in my way? How can I beat them to the finish line, as opposed to, linking arms and crossing the finish line together. So I think, you're very generous, and it's based on your love philosophy.
Yeah, that's the most important thing to me. I mean, this has been my resilience, has been the love I share and the love I receive. And I think, like AI said to me this morning, because I check in with ChatGPT networking every morning, and AI came up with a great uh, explanation that love is with resilience and hope, that love is the real ROI of business networking AI. So it's like what you give is what goes around, comes around, and it's what you receive. So by doing both, and giving and receiving love while you are making money at the same time, I don't think it gets better than that. You're getting rewarded in multiple ways, not just, greed and money, which doesn't bring happiness. So this is what we just went through is a great open for this video course, and I'm going to be opening it with that, and then I'll play the rest of the course, and people can listen to it on the go, and they can share it on the Great Discovery, where you can get it absolutely free, right on the Great Discovery platform. But you can also learn about the Great Discovery platform and how it applies to local business networking and checking in and following up. That's what I'm going to be teaching people, because I love networking because I love people, but I don't love to see people that are struggling in networking or not succeeding in networking. So I want to make sure that they are understanding two things. One, You can receive everything you want in life and get anywhere you want to go with these 5 words: checking in and following up. If you do those things, you will get to where you want to go, because why rush to failure when you can take your time to success? But I want to give networkers the heads up about the reverse of that. If you are networking and you don't follow up, what message does that send? That sends a painful message that you don't care about that person. You might not think you're sending that message. I understand communication inside out because I study both sides of it. I study the human side of it to gain clarity and certainty on your messaging, but I also understand the media side of it. But if you can't communicate in person, it's going to be 10 times more difficult to communicate through media. So you have to know both, but the human to human side of that is most important. Many people don't understand that they are sending a message if they don't check in and follow up. They're sending the message you don't care. That's the message you're sending loud and clear. If you do follow up and you are a giver rather than a taker, you're sending an extremely focused and powerful message. So the two are just monumentally different. One is just huge and very powerful, and the other one is going to cause pain and struggle. That if you go to networking events, you're almost obligating yourself, if you're smart, to check in and follow up. And that's what I teach people.
Well, one thing too, when you talk about follow-up, it just struck me that let's say you and I met at a networking event, and then I was gonna follow up with you, and I said, "Hey, Mike, nice meeting at the networking event. Let's have coffee, and I can tell you how I can help you." Right? And that's a very self-centered approach. It's like, oh, you're going to help me by telling me how you can sell, how I can buy whatever you're selling, right? As
Right,
opposed to, hey, Mike, great meeting with you. Let's have coffee. I'd like to learn more about you, see how I can refer people to you.
right.
So there's follow up and then there's follow up.
Exactly. And think about it. People are experienced enough to know that most times at networking events that aren't well run, it's like going to a dodgeball game, where it's like people are throwing pitches at you left and right, and you're trying to dodge them. I mean, that's really what it can be like. But if you just relax at the event and realize that what you really want to do is make a true connection with somebody and do it gently and over time and with love, and by reconnecting with them and about, hey, are you comfortable? There's a couple of really good ones to connect with. Is I want to check in and follow up about AI and the future of you and the future of work. Are you comfortable with AI? Are you struggling with AI? And what I find, Ron, is that when I ask people, they go, "Oh no, I know I've got to learn it. I've got a lot to learn about it. I'm not comfortable with it. I don't understand it. I'm fearful about it." Those kind of things. That's what I'm finding. So when you can refer people to even somebody like me that can help them with AI, and you're checking in because you know me, well, you're building your own relationship with them because of our relationship. And that's what I want to help people understand, is that we all win when we all, connect and work together like that.
Absolutely, absolutely. And just, kind of wanted to touch on, you talked about the reality of it's not the future of work, it's the reality of work today.
Yeah.
So, just a couple of comments about FinFed Life, and one of the things that attracted me to this company. So we are basically, in health and finance and financial services, and we are in a startup mode. So when people think of a startup, think about Apple. What if somebody bought stock in Apple when they were operating out of their garage? and where they are today, and if they had invested or were an employee of Apple. So Pinfit Life is in a startup mode, started at the end of 2019 by a billionaire financial icon in the financial industry. So he came up with this idea of combining health and wellness with financial services and protecting your money. So I'm an independent contractor, but I'm working with FinFit Life, so I can work whatever hours I want to. So we have associates with all backgrounds, not necessarily in finance. In fact, I had no background in finance. So I can work, part time, full time. But the founder, his name is Howard Sharfman, he said, I want to reward people who want to join our team. So even as an independent contractor, I can earn equity in the company.
Hmm.
So the goal, the strategy, he stated it very publicly, and he and his partner, they've built four companies. They took two public, and they sold two to private equity. So he's very familiar with the M&A game. The last company he sold, he and his partner, they sold it for $14 billion.
Wow.
So his strategy is, okay, we're going to build this FinFit Life to $1 billion company in the next 5 years, and then we're going to sell it. However, when that economic event happens, all of us independent contractors, we can share in that public offering, which could be huge, and we get to keep our book of business. So he's a very
Wow.
innovative, forward thinking, generous minded person. He doesn't need the money to start FinFit Life, but he sees there's a need in you might call it the marketplace, but there's a human need. And so we are, you might call it pioneers in the future and the current situation of work. People can work when they want, especially, let's say, a single parent raising kids, working maybe one or two jobs to put food on the table, um, or somebody that is looking for a career opportunity, different. Maybe they're sick and tired, or even, let's say, younger people, Gen Z, that have a lifestyle that they like. So we have huge flexibility, but also that building an ownership value in the company, that is huge. Anyway, so just, when you talk about the future of work, we are really defining the future of work.
Well, I think, Ron, as always, you always give me some light bulb, which I really appreciate. But you're right. It is not about the future of work. It is about the current reality and the current situation of work. And, I'm working on developing Love AI magazine, because I believe, and my experience is if you put love into AI, you get loving content out for courses and stories and really everything out. But it is what is happening currently. It's not the future. It will be the future. And it's going to be very important that you get yourself set up for the future as quickly as you can. And resilience is a key to being, with hope, is being able to make transitions quickly and effectively. And that's why I think I would have to say that learning about how to love the Great Discovery platform is what I want to be sharing with people, because there's so many great things to love about it and what can be done with your story and with courses uh, and learning AI at the same time. They're really the most generous and current company uh, that I think is vital that's out there, just like you feel like that about FinFit Life. I actually think the two go together very well, especially with podcast listening on the go, where I'm going to be hosting this and many other courses and stories. I'll be posting them on uh, sites like Patch and Publishzilla and Instagram, and in addition to being on the Great Discovery and covering networking events, as long as I am checking in and following up, then I know I'm doing a good job at networking events. So, Ron Horry, as always, I think we've given folks a good hour-long walk, to do a healthy walk, and then check in with Ron Horry on LinkedIn. You're on LinkedIn, right, Ron? All they have
Yes,
to do is look,
absolutely.
right?
Yes, yes.
Ron Horry, search Ron Horry FinFit Life on LinkedIn. Hook up with Ron, learn more. Maybe you want to work for FinFit Life. Maybe you want to talk about, living benefits. So lots of stuff to share. Ron, as always, my friend, it's so important and valuable for me to get a little help from my friend Ron Horry. So I appreciate you being here, Ron.
Yes, thank you, Mike Hayes. Also, it's always a pleasure to listen to you, and also for thank you for giving me the opportunity to share a little bit more about myself. And I think and you go back to that loneliness
Yeah.
idea, and young people, middle-aged people, seniors, it that loneliness is an epidemic, unfortunately. And there are ways, we can help people be more, you might say, be more social, you might say. So somebody says, oh, I'm really lonely and I like to meet more friends. And then even my family, sometimes families don't even check in or follow up. That's real, very unfortunate. But, loneliness, it's a real issue. It's not only a personal issue, but it's a health issue. So I think that's something that definitely one needs to be recognized, and then two, showing people ways to deal with it, not to deal with it, but how to become more social. How do you step out of your comfort zone to meet other people? That could be a whole other topic for our conversation. Just dealing with loneliness.
Let me respond to that and say, I know loneliness. I know the pain of it. It's the illness of it. It's 24/7. And it's when you're alone and you're lonely, you're not only in pain, but you are alone in pain. And I know it. And I empathize with it. I sympathize with it. I relate to it. I don't want anyone to be lonely, including myself. And that's why I concentrate on my relationship with universal love and God, because that is how I know I'll never be lonely, honestly. And that's why I focus on that and on love and building my friendships in commerce, but my friendships, in life and, across business and life and everything else. Because, we all need a little help from our friends and a little love from our friends. And God knows I have had a lot of that. And I am really, really grateful for it. My, long-term relationships has been my forte, and that's what I want to continue. I've had a great long run with the Great Discovery already too, and I want to continue that and help those great people as well. So, again, Ron, thanks for joining us. Let's wrap this up, and I'll send this to you when I get it done, and hopefully we get people listening to it while they're out walking and listening to both of us on the Great Discovery.
Yes, thanks again, Mike Hayes. Always appreciate being with you and hope you have a great weekend.
Thanks, my friend. You have a great weekend too, Ron.
Okay, bye bye.
Okay, bye now.